Hey everyone, and welcome to every single book I read in 2023. I just spent over 30 minutes getting all of these books, stacking them. I didn't even stack them in the order I read them, which I should have, because that would make it so much easier when I'm pulling them out. But this year, well, not this year because I'm filming this in 2024, in 2023 I read exactly 80 books, and a lot more than I normally read, only by like 10 or 15, but still 2023 was like my last year that I could read in a lot of abundance since I'm about to go to school next year. So I read 80 books. It was a bit of a struggle to get to 80. The last week of 2023 I was reading like 200 pages a day because I was like, oh yeah, I can definitely finish 80 books, and then like my last two books were each like 400 to 600 pages, so I was like, oh, that's great, why did I do that to myself? So I'm gonna go in order of how I read them, and I'm just gonna kind of say what I thought briefly because there are 80 of them. I literally should have just put them in the order that I read them because this is gonna be so hard. This book I just pulled was like from the very bottom. So as I'm pulling them, I'm probably just gonna put them to the side because I don't want to have to stack them again. So this whole stack is gonna dwindle. But like, look how many, oh, so gorgeous. Okay, first book I read, Zodiac Academy, Sorrow and Starlight. This was like the latest release in the series. I had read the other books in the series March of 2022, and it quickly became one of my favorite series. Like, not 5-star, it's fantasy, obviously has stuff to do with zodiac signs, it has to do with like the elements, fire, air, earth, water, kind of like Avatar, but not an Avatar at all. It's just really silly and fun, and I just have a fun time reading them. My heart broke in book 7, so I was highly anticipating this book. Don't really remember how I felt about it after, but I probably felt really good because I was waiting for the next one. Then I read Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Everybody was raving about this on TikTok, and I told myself I would stop taking so many book recs from TikTok because I had been stacking up a physical TBR and I just wasn't reading any of those books. I love contemporary romance. I didn't like this. Everybody liked this. I would give it like 2.5 stars. Like, I would recommend it to someone who's just getting into reading. I feel like when I first started reading I would have enjoyed this more because it's not as dense. It was cute. That's all I really remember about it. Then I read Matrix by Lauren Groff. Loved the cover, was drawn to it. I'm pretty sure it's historical fiction. I might be wrong about it. I don't really remember much about it because I don't really read historical fiction that much. Pretty sure it's about female like creativity, how to be like a female in like a corrupt world. I remember liking this, but it took me a long time to get through it. After that I read Address Unknown by Katherine Cressman Taylor. It's just a bunch of letters between somebody in the US and somebody in Germany during World War II. I'm pretty sure it's about these two people in a business together and they're trying to like keep it up, and then World War II happened and they aren't able to communicate with each other as well anymore. After that I read Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Ever since I read Evelyn Hugo, have loved her. I really liked this book. It's kind of similar to that movie, I never watched it, but that movie on Netflix with Lily Reinhart, and how she like makes different like what would be different if she made different decisions. This is basically kind of the same thing. It's about some girl, and there's this one guy that she is dating, and if she keeps dating him or if she breaks up with him, and like something about a car accident, and then a doctor, like if she gets with the doctor. And I remember loving this book because I love cinnamon rolls, and there's a thing about cinnamon rolls in here between her and one of the guys. I'm pretty sure I gave this like a 3.5, 4 star, which is pretty good for me. That's like, so definitely recommend this book. After that I read Circe by Madeline Miller. I swore I had the physical copy, but as I was spending 30 minutes acquiring all of these to put on my couch, I realized that I did not have a physical copy, so now I need to go buy one. That was one of my 5-star reads of this year. Rarely give 5 stars, but I loved it. It's about Circe, you know, she's a witch on the mountain, the whole Oedipus thing. Read it. That's all I have to say. Then I read The Hidden Palace by Helen Wecker. I'm pretty sure this is also historical fiction slash fantasy. It's a novel of the Golem and the Jinn. It has some aspects of Judaism in it. There's a Jinn and she gets cast out from the whole Jinn society. It's really interesting and also really weird. I don't really remember much of it. I do remember it taking me a long time because the words are so small and it wasn't very fast paced for the type of book it is, and like I was intrigued by it. I'm pretty sure I gave it like 3-star, 2.5 star. I would recommend to somebody who reads this genre and likes this genre. I was just trying to get away from romance for a little while. Then I read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. It's inspiration for the Blade Runner films, which I haven't seen. It's like sci-fi, stuff like that. There's like androids in it, people killing each other, not knowing what's reality, stuff like that. After that, I read My Body by Elmy Radikowski. This year, I recently started getting into memoirs. I think I only read like 2 though. But I really did like this. I tabbed some things in here. I really should read it again and tab more. I think it'll also be interesting to like read it when I'm a little older and see what resonated with me when I was a teenager and then when I'm in my 20s. But it's just about her experience modeling, confidence, boys, life. I really liked this book. After a long time away from romance, I read The Final Offer by Lauren Asher. It's the 3rd book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. Everybody said this was their least favorite, but I think this was my most favorite. After hearing other people talk about it, I started noticing things that maybe I didn't like. Like, it was slow paced, it was really repetitive, but it is longer than the other ones. The other ones were good. I just feel like this one was better to me, which is really interesting. It's second chance romance, which normally I don't like. The girl in this has a daughter, which I normally don't like when kids are involved with it. I like seeing how the kid connected with Cal. I'm pretty sure I put this as like 4 stars at the time. I'd probably go to 3.5. While I was reading The Final Offer, I was in school. So in school we had to read Killers of the Flower Moon by David Gran. And this got turned into a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. I didn't go see it. This wasn't my favorite book that we read in class. I really liked how it was still interesting though, even though it's nonfiction, because I don't really like nonfiction. It's about the Osage murders and like the FBI. I love FBI shows, so putting it into book form really pulled me in. Not really my type of thing, but I would still recommend it. After that, I read The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. I got this book rec from Jack Edwards. I was really intrigued by the fact that it's translated from Japanese. It's about people losing their memories. Basically, the memory police go and like destroy objects or destroy ideas or destroy information. Really liked it. Then I got back into fantasy, specifically sort of darker fantasy with Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. This took me absolutely forever to get through. It was so slow paced. The story is interesting, and I know this is a series, but I will not be reading the other ones. I'm really curious with how it would go on, but it was just so boring at times because it was so slow. I just need things to happen sometimes, and it just wasn't happening. I still liked the story, so for that it's gonna be a 2 stars. After that, I kept with this sort of darker vibe going, and I read the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. This is 5 books in 1 book. I remember being sick while reading this. I think I read it in like a day or maybe 2 days. So good. Second 5-star read of the year. I liked pretty much everything. The girl in this is killing people. She's a murderer. And then the guy that she likes is an FBI agent on the case of her murder. And like she's helping him with the case because she meets him under like circumstances where she's not killing. It was so good. Just read it. Fast paced, tension. I mean, it's murder and romance in one. Like what else do you need? Then I got into some really deep stuff with Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. Next 5-star read of the year. 2 back to back. Pretty good. Got a good flow going. It's about Reagan and Aldo. They meet in our institution. They agree to have 6 conversations with each other, and to like then leave each other alone. Reagan's in a relationship. She's struggling with her work. Aldo is a mathematician. He's sort of struggling. He just has a lot of thoughts in his head. It's a really good character study, like deep character study about relationships, friendships, family stuff comes into play, mental health. It's great. It's great. Then another school book I was reading, In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. Didn't like this that much. Then I read Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, which is the second book after Ninth House. Loved this. I also why do I do that? Like, why do I just have a singular tab? Anyway, it's about Alex Stern. She went to Yale. There's a secret society. In the first book, Darlington, something happened to Darlington if you haven't read it. And then in this book, she goes and tries to get Darlington. And there's a bunch of like spirit, ghost kind of stuff. It's like dark academia fantasy. I don't know if I would say this is 5 stars. Maybe. Pretty damn close, like 4.75, maybe 5. After that dark academia, I went into more fantasy and I read Crescent City by Sarah J Maas. I got through this pretty quickly despite it being like real thick. I liked ACOTAR better because at the time I hadn't read Throne of Glass yet, just ACOTAR. I was not going to read this, but then I kept seeing TikToks about the second book having Asriel in it and how other people from her different book series were gonna come into it, so I was like, might as well. Least favorite out of all the Sarah J Maas stuff I've read, just because it has elements of the like real world, like there's phones and there's cars and stuff, and like normally when I think fantasy I think kingdoms from far away, hills, mountains. Wasn't what I was expecting. Still love the characters though. Some of the characters I love, like all of the characters I like were like dying off, and it really makes me sad. After that, I read the next one, House of Sky and Breath, just because back to back. Excited for the next one, coming out January 30th, I think. That one's gonna be great, just because the last little section in here. Then I kept going, kept rolling with fantasy, and I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Everybody was like, it's ACOTAR spin-off-ish. I liked it, not my favorite. I'd recommend it to somebody who reads fantasy. I don't think I'd give it above 3 stars. Oh wait, no, I liked this one. I'm thinking of the second one. This one I liked because it's basically enemies to lovers. It's a daughter of the vampire king who goes to a tournament and face other vampires for some other reason, and she has to make an alliance with him. Like, they're enemies and then reluctant alliance to lovers. Yeah. Next books I read after that, I read on Kindle because I saw them on TikTok and I was like, might as well just read it. It was Triple Threat and Death Wish by Kay Webster, and I'm looking at my phone where I have like all of the books I read, and next to it it says absolutely terrible, do not read, do not recommend to anybody, don't remember what they're about, don't read them. After, or probably during, because this is another school book, I read Columbine by Dave Cullen. This is my favorite book we read in my English class that year. It's about school shooting, which was very prevalent to the time we were reading it. It is about the shooting itself and then the people that did it. We asked questions like, who was the mastermind? Did both of them really want to do it? Why did they do it? I liked this book a lot. After that, I continued with The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent and read the next one, which is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. Pretty sure this is the one I didn't like as much. Can't really remember why. I'm pretty sure in it the guy is like the king and like she gets locked up or something. I just don't even remember. Pretty good, not memorable. After that, I read the novella that goes with it, which is Six Scorched Roses, also by Carissa Broadbent, and it's about one of the other characters that's in the other 2 books, and I liked this one more than I like The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. It's pretty short. This time it wasn't about 2 vampires, it's about a vampire and a human. I would recommend this. Then I went on to read a contemporary romance, Swear on This Life by Renee Carlino. Got this from Sephora. I love this a lot. It was more in depth than a romance normally is. It wasn't just it. There's a lot of backstory. It's about this one girl named Emmeline, and she reads this book because her friend gives it to her. She's like, oh my god, this book is so good and the author is so hot. And so she reads it reluctantly, and as she's reading it she notices that it's her life, and she realizes that it's this guy that used to be her neighbor that she like fell in love with and had this whole history with when she was younger. So then they get back in contact and stuff. She already has a boyfriend. Crazy stuff. Loved it. I don't think maybe I gave it 5 stars. It was definitely one of my favorites, like 4.75. It was up there. Then my grandma gave me this book. It's The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. It got turned into an Apple TV series, and I wanted to read it before I watched it because it was kind of interesting. I'm pretty sure in it there's a daughter and a father, and then the father marries this one girl. The daughter doesn't like her new stepmother, but then her dad goes missing, and the daughter and the stepmother figure things out, and they bond, and they go on this like whole thing to see what happened to him. It was pretty good. It was really short. It's not like I'm not gonna read it again. Then I reread the ACOTAR series. Everybody knows what these are. Basically a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Then it goes into more stuff. Also, just noticing now that I'm looking at my thing, I didn't even mark down that I read A Court of Silver Flames. So I read 81 books, and I was, just to think, I was going crazy over the fact that I didn't get to 80, but I read 81. Everybody knows these books though. Then I read another book my grandmother recommended to me, which is What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. I am just realizing now that I haven't really read much murder mystery this year, which is really sad because I love mystery, thriller, any kind of psychological, like, oh, what the fuck happened? That kind of stuff. This was so good. It has mythology in it. It's about these 3 girls, and when they were little, they used to play goddesses in the woods. Something traumatic happened while they were playing goddesses, and when they're older, one of them expires, and one that left the town has to come back, and just shit goes down. Friends aren't friends anymore. Stuff like that. Then I read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Got to it kind of late. I had this for so long before I read it, and I like refused to scroll on TikTok for more than like 5 minutes just in case I got spoilers. But this was great. Don't know if I'd give it 5 stars. I think I would. Everybody knows about this. I was really intrigued because fantasy, dragons, everybody was like, it's kind of like Divergent, which I can see that, and I love Divergent. It's about Violet. She is supposed to be a scribe, but instead her mother forces her to go to the writer's quadrant, where she has to kind of get over her physical, not really disabilities, but she kind of sees herself as less than, especially at the beginning, because she's shorter, not as strong, she has brittle bones. She befriends Rhiannon and Sawyer and other people, can't remember their names, but this broke me a little bit into it. You'll know what I'm talking about if you've read it, which you probably have. So just like everybody else, loved this. Now a book that everybody loved, or most people loved, and I did not. Finding 13 by Chloe Walsh. I had such high hopes. People were saying, oh my god, so good, best series of my life. I thought it was so long for what? So repetitive. I get that these people have issues, but Shannon, I cannot stand her. I'm so sorry. I understand that stuff is going on at home. I do. I really do. But just, she cries all the time. All the time. Like every page. I'm sorry. If you love this, just don't listen to me. Don't let me hurt your spirit. I did not like this book. Then I read The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. I'm pretty sure this is just normal fiction. Maybe it could be under like psychological fiction. I don't really remember much about it, or if there's like mystery, but it's about like Ponzi schemes and embezzlement, but like in a fiction way. It was interesting. Not for me. Then I read the entirety of the Ember and the Ashes series by Sabaa Tahir. I was looking for a new fantasy series to read. Everybody was raving about how good this was. I wouldn't say it's my favorite series of all time. It was still good. It's about Laia and Elias. Laia is a slave that escapes a really perilous situation with her parents and brother, and she ends up at this school for like soldiers in the kingdom. And she meets Elias and Helene. I'm pretty sure it's Helene, might be Helen, but she meets them and they embark on this great journey with magic and stuff. Then I read Gallant by V.E. Schwab. Love V.E. Schwab. Anything she releases, I'll probably end up picking up at some point in time. I loved The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I know some people don't. I need to reread it. This is about two worlds, like the dead and the living. Olivia is an orphan and she gets called to Gallant, which is the house, and she gets dragged into this world of like ghosts and spirits and hauntings and stuff like that. It was very Halloweeny. Then I was feeling like getting into some mystery, so I read The Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz and The Moonflower Murders by Anthony Horowitz. They're both whodunits with the same detective going around trying to solve the whodunit. I think in this one he gets like called to solve a murder because there's like a manuscript or something, and in this one I'm pretty sure he's retired or like very sick, and I'm pretty sure in this one he gets called to a hotel and has to solve a murder that happened there. After that I reread The Deal by Elle Kennedy. We all know this one, hockey romance. They're at a college in Boston. Hannah is an aspiring musician, Garrett is the one that plays hockey, and it's fake dating. Garrett doesn't want a girlfriend, he doesn't want people to be attached to him, so he's like, oh, you be my fake girlfriend and then people won't come up to me anymore. That's kind of his excuse. He's kind of like always liked her though. And then Hannah wants this other guy on the football team to notice her. Quick read, always fun. Then I read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint to get back into some mythology. Loved this as well. Basically any kind of mythology retelling, I'm gonna eat it up. It's about Ariadne, which is the princess of Crete, and how she deals with the Minotaur, her brother, and it's about like her family, her sister Phaedra. Not as good as Circe was, so not 5 stars in my eyes, but probably like 4 stars. Then I read The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. First of all, I don't know if you can see it because of the glare, but look at the cover. It's so pretty. Okay, but anyways, it's about the Lisbon sisters who are like kind of secluded in their house other than school, and then these guys are like, oh my god, look at them, like some of them are so, one of them is so pretty, like I wonder if she'll come out with me and stuff like that, and then they like start dying one by one because they're trapped in their house. I would recommend this book. Then I thought it would just be a splendid idea to bring A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara with me on vacation. Not a good idea. I don't really cry when I read books. I get emotional reading some things. I didn't cry during this. If you've read it, you might think I'm crazy. I just got really depressed. Like, it took me so long to read this because every time something would happen, I would have to stop reading because I was just so sad that I just couldn't. This was another 5-star read for me. Don't really love the cover. Like, can we like, there we go. It's about trauma, friendship, 4 guys living in New York City, and also kind of in college, them growing up together and separately when they have falling outs. There's a lot of triggers, so if you want to read this, look up trigger warnings, but I think that it was spectacular. Then after so long, I finally read the entire Throne of Glass series. Everybody knows it, by Sarah J Maas. Fantasy, main character, she is cast away from her home when she was young because Terrasen is like in ruin, and she goes on to be an assassin, and then she's like, oh, I'm not only an assassin, like people don't realize it, but I'm not only an assassin, and then she tells people, and then she has to go get her kingdom back, and she falls in love, and then she finds new powers, and then it was just great. After that, I read Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I did a reading wrap up for I think October and September, and this was in it. Everybody loved this book. I thought it was really mediocre. It's like workplace enemies to lovers, I guess, and then it's like the guy's so obviously in love with her, and she's just like clueless, and there's like war, and it was okay. Okay, before we get on with like the next one in the actual order that I read them, I have 1984 here, and I also have Mad Honey here, and I know for a fact that I read both of these this year, but they're just not on my list. So I read 83 books this year. Anyways, 1984 by George Orwell. It was okay. I didn't really love it. This is one that my grandparents also recommended me. It's Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult. There's murder in it, family, bees, Mad Honey, also love. It's about these two like young, I'm pretty sure they're in high school, they fall in love. This guy and his mom live in this town, and then this girl and her mom live in the town, and the girl and the mom are like new. And so the guy like falls in love with her, they start going on dates and stuff. His father is absentee, like he went away because he's like kind of messed up. And so I'm pretty sure his name's Archer in here. Asher falls in love with Lily, and Asher he doesn't want to be messed up, but he feels like he might be, and he is the one who people think killed Lily, which Lily is the one who dies. I thought this was so good. Not 5-star, 4.75, a favorite. I read The Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is the 4th book in the Inheritance Game series. It spotlights Jameson and Grayson, and they both go on their like own separate little adventures. Thought it was pretty good, like 3 stars. Then I reread The Score by Elle Kennedy, which follows Dean DeLaurentis and Allie, who is Hannah's best friend from The Deal. She's an aspiring actor, he plays hockey, and she's just getting out of a breakup. She needs to let off steam, and she lets off steam with Dean. And then they kind of like keep hooking up, and then they kind of like date each other on the low, and then finally something happens and she's like, oh, my favorite scene is, get me Dean, and then she gets Dean. Then I read Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Loved this book. Sci-fi, fantasy, dystopian, utopian, whatever you want to call it. Dune is being made into a movie? No. I haven't read this book, so I can't say no. This should be a movie. It's like Star Wars level. Better than Hunger Games. This is great. There's a hierarchy and a reigning sovereign, and Darrow is the main character. He tries to uproot all of it with the help of the Son of Ares, which is this kind of rebel organization. He ends up going undercover, undergoing physical changes in order to go undercover, and then he kind of gets placed in these games. That's basically the Hunger Games, but better. Just read it. Just read it. 5 stars. Then I don't know why I took a break from that, but then I went and read The Risk by Elle Kennedy, which is part of the Briar U series, Not Off Campus. It follows Jake Connolly and Brenna. It's kind of enemies to lovers. They're not really enemies. He just shouldn't be dating her because she is the daughter of his rival team's coach. Left it. Read it. After that, I read the rest of the original Timeline Red Rising series, which is Golden Sun and Morning Star, also by Pierce Brown. These just follow Darrow. Is this the 3rd one? Yeah. These just follow Darrow through the rest of his time, going undercover, trying to uproot the government, making friends, stuff like that. Also 5 stars. Read all of these. Then when we restarted school, I had to read Passing by Nella Larson, which was pretty good, pretty short. Finished it pretty quickly. It has to do with passing and racial and societal standings. It was pretty good. Then I read my second memoir of the year, which is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I didn't tab it. I do have some stuff underlined, but it's kind of the same thing I want to do with my body, where I want to be able to read this when I'm older and like see what I underlined when I was younger, and then tab it up because I'll have more experiences, be able to resonate with it more, I feel like. But even being 17 now, I think it was great. 5 star. After that, I read the entire Rook and Rose series by M.A. Carrick, which is The Mask of Mirrors, The Liar's Knot, and Labyrinth's Heart. And these were all political fantasies. There's an element of magic. The magic is like tarot. It has a lot more to do with like cultural magic. There's curses, gangs, vigilantes. They're really long, and the romance is like really subplot. So if you want a romance, I wouldn't recommend reading these, but if you want something different from just like everyday romance and fantasy, I think these are really good to read. I'd give them 3.75. Then also for school, I had to read Educated by Tara Westover, which is it's another memoir about mental health and how she kind of got out of her household, which was really oppressive to her mind and her spirit, and how she went out into the world, got a PhD, made a name for herself. I realized I didn't say I read this, but I read The Binding by Bridget Collins. Already went over it in my reading wrap up. It was pretty good. It's like magic and like books are bad. Next book I read, The Grimm Effect, also by Elle Kennedy. 5 star. 5 star read. 5 star read. Read this right now if you want a romance. Both of them play hockey. This is the daughter of Garrett Graham from The Deal. Thought they were great together. They're basically enemies to lovers, but they help each other out. No third act breakup. Just amazing. Just read it. Then I read Iron Flame, which was the next one after Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I thought this was pretty good. It could have been more. I just feel like the relationship, it's enemies to lovers, right? And they were already got from enemies to lovers in the first book. And then they just kind of regressed here. They also didn't spend as much time with each other because of the like political stuff going on. So they couldn't be near each other, but they needed to be near each other because of their dragons. So I feel like there could have been more. And I just hope the next book, but things just come together more seamlessly. Still liked it. Then I don't have this book with me, but for class we had to read The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Pretty good. Everybody kind of knows what that's about. Then I read Collide by Belle Cabra because I wanted another hockey romance after The Grimm Effect hangover. It was okay. Typical enemies to lovers. I mean, you can read it. It kind of gave me the same as Icebreaker. Like, it was meh. Okay, you probably heard it in the background in my last clip, but my dogs were just barking. Anyways, next I read the next part of the timeline from Pierce Brown's Red Rising, and I read Iron Gold, Dark Age, and Lightbringer. All of these, again, so good. It follows Darrow and like other characters a decade later from the end of Morningstar, and it's about how stuff that they got done is crumbling, how war is still going on after they started 10 whole freaking years ago. He struggles being a father and being a warrior. One of the characters from the other book, Lysander, he grows up. People just become corrupt, just like in the real world. Read these. Then the final book I read so fast, just because I was like, oh goddamn, I gotta get to 80 books. I can't just stop at 79, even though I had already read 80 books, was Zodiac Academy Beyond the Veil, which is 8.5. And if you don't know what happens in Zodiac Academy, or you want to read it and you don't want spoilers, you'll honestly probably forget. Actually, you won't forget, never mind, just skip. But obviously Beyond the Veil, somebody's dead, and this is their point of view from the dead. I started the year with Zodiac Academy and I ended the year with Zodiac Academy. But that was the last book I read. Didn't realize I read 83 books, but I read 83 books. I'm like looking at them all. They're like all around me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Next year probably won't be as much. And this year I'm thinking about doing more book content, like reading vlogs. I need to start Magnolia Parks. I'm going to start Magnolia Parks because I'm so ready to read that. But I hope you enjoyed this video. While you're still here, why don't you just, you know, subscribe, like the button's right there. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.